Welcome to the Marvellous-U Podcast. Today's episode is a deeply human one. It's about love, resilience, loss, and the quiet courage it takes to show up every day for a child with special needs. We're talking about daily life with a child with special needs. The routines that bring stability, the meltdowns that test patience and strength, and the breakthroughs that remind you why you keep going. My guest today wears many hats. She is an entrepreneur, a resilience coach, an advocate for children with special needs, a local councillor, and a deputy mayor in her community. And she's also an author of 3 books. But at the heart of her story is motherhood. This conversation today is honest, is tender, and is filled with insights for parents, caregivers, leaders, and anyone who wants to better understand what life really looks like behind the scenes of special needs parenting. I'm honored to share her story with you today. I welcome my guest, Bisi Osundeko.
Hello.
Welcome, Bisi. I'm really honored to have you here today. Thank you for, coming on the Marvellous-U Podcast. I don't know if you heard my introduction at all, did you?
I did, and that's why I have a smile on my face. Thank you so much for having me. Thank you for the introduction. Thank you for the invitation as well.
You're welcome.
For opportunity to be able to have this discussion with you and your viewers. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate you, being here. I know I've done, a little bit of introduction, but I wouldn't say I have all of an insight into who you really are. So please, let's start with telling, let's hear it from yourself. Tell us a little bit about yourself and your journey as a mother. I know as an entrepreneur, a public servant, and author. Let's hear from you.
Lovely. Thank you so much, Grace. Once again, it's fantastic to be here. It's such a, really beautiful podcast, Marvellous-U Podcast. I've really been looking forward to this opportunity to be able to have a discussion with you. The introduction was fantastic. Honestly, I don't know what else I can add to the very lovely words. You've basically summed up. You've done a really good summary of my whole life, really. But you're very, very right, because you know me very well. We've known each other for a long time, possibly over a decade, in fact. And so you know that I wear many hats. But I think for me, the most important hat that I wear, and that I even believe that will be the most relevant to this discussion, is that of a special needs mom. So I am proudly a special needs mom, and it's fantastic to be here. You also mentioned something about my work as a businesswoman. Both of us have that in common, don't we? And that's huge, because even though both of us are special needs parents, we are also entrepreneurs as well. Run multiple businesses, ranging from a manufacturing business of a 5-star rated baby wearing brand, Joy and Joe, which is named after my children, Joy and Joseph, and also real estate and convenience retail. Most recently, about 5 years ago, also into convenience retail as well. So my husband and I run convenience retail shops, and I'm also proudly a politician as well, serving my community here in St. Helens, and I'm currently the deputy mayor of our town, St. Helens, and written, like you said, I've written some books, which I am really, really grateful to be able to achieve. Just wanted to share my experience, my life, and in a way, it's very therapeutic as well to just pour out your heart and just put down your experience. It's almost like you're journaling, but this time you're sharing with the world. So this is something that I wanted to outlive me. I wanted my experience to bless other people, to be able to, because I have read the stories of other people who have walked these paths. And my own story is unique. It's not the same. People say to me, we rarely meet people who have 2 children with special needs. I get that all the time. So it's really important for me to sort of share my story. In a way, it's a fantastic icebreaker. When I meet people, I don't have to sort of explain all over again as to how I ended up having 2 children with special needs, completely different circumstances in both my birth stories. But yes, I am. This is a badge that I very proudly wear.
Yeah.
Without that experience, I don't think I would have met you. I don't think I'll be here. So I am really grateful for that. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. Like you said, your journey as a mother, an entrepreneur, a public servant, and an author, you really do wear a lot of hats. So how do these parts of your life, how do they intersect?
Great question. I love the question. And I get asked that all the time. I actually believe that one can never really have that balance. You can just try. You know what I mean? When I would say especially mothers, we are usually asked, we're not actually like an octopus or multitasker. How do you manage to do all these things? On some days, to be honest, it can feel like a struggle because you're doing so many things, if you know what I mean.
If I should come in there, I know that like your Joy and Joe baby wearing was born out of, raising your children. You started that. I think that was the first business that came.
Absolutely.
And now it has become a really
the first main business,
famous brand.
Yes.
And so that was how you started from.
That was that prior to that, I was running a child-minding business. So I'm an early years practitioner. Because then
I remember that.
Hosted. So I was actually doing that already before I started my baby wearing brand. But clearly this brand definitely grew beyond our imagination. So yes, I'm proud of that. I've been in business.
Yeah. Amazing. Really amazing. You are the definition of a resilient woman and, an entrepreneur in every sense of the word. You are.
Thank you.
Yeah. So your motherhood journey has included profound love and loss and resilience. Now, what feels most important for listeners to understand about your family story? What is most important for them to understand?
So I think what is most important for viewers to understand about my story is adversity. How in life, adversity is not necessarily an enemy. If you understand what I mean. And I'm saying this as somebody who was very, very distraught at the beginning of my journey. Questions like why me and things like that. I took all my folic acid. I did everything right. I followed all the rules.
Exactly.
So what actually went wrong? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I think it's important for people to realize that, adversity is not necessarily there to destroy you. It can be a fantastic foundation for growth. You know what I mean? Because adversity certainly, and I think this is also why I wrote a book on adversity, being a friend, because adversity, if embraced, can really, really do wonders in terms of shaping our behavior, building our resilience, also in terms of how we sort of reach out to the community, to supporting others, because of my experience now, the adversity that I've been through in my mother's journey. And when I mean adversity, trust me, which I'm sure you know, because you know my story, I've been through a lot of adversity. And when you are a parent, even though my daughter Joy is late, I still talk about her like though she's still here. But then it's ongoing. It's not something that really sort of stops. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, because sometimes I'll be like, when are we really going to have a break? You know what I mean? You're having a diagnosis upon the other, this diagnosis, you're doing everything right.
Yeah.
Plant-based, you're doing all the things that you believe to be right, be ethically correct, and things just go wrong. So that's one. I would say that if there's a gift I can sort of sum up really my life to the world, is to sort of embrace adversity. Because my background growing up, the belief was that life was almost going to be reciprocal to whatever I put into it. If I do everything right, everything will, I'm going into an exam, I've read, I'll definitely pass. But life doesn't happen that way. Life doesn't happen that way. Things will happen that will shake you to your core. It does not necessarily mean that you deserve it. You understand? Understanding that the things that happen in life, they don't go according to some sort of plan that, okay, you put this in, get that. You know what I mean? I mean, you also, especially needs mama, you know how they tell us you must use your folic acid so that everything is perfect. And so how about those of us who did everything?
And yet didn't.
With all the right things, ate all the fruits and everything. And they say that try not to have your kids late, so have them early. So
earlier, exactly. That is also
and then in the special needs community, it's a spectrum. So you have people who are not affected, some people who are maybe not really moderately affected. Then my journey, that means that both my children are severely affected by their conditions. When things just don't add up, it's a real adversity, from cancer to respiratory issues to
brain tumors,
goes on. And I think the reason why I can now see this as a blessing, however difficult it's been, is that when people approach me for support, for advice, there's probably hardly a medical condition that we haven't experienced in a way, And I can relate. Do you understand what I mean? I can relate.
Yes.
I'll give an example, like when someone was talking to me about their child being non-verbal, and my goodness, I was able to sense the distress in this mother's, experience when she was talking about how I've done this, I read to her, and this and that. She's just not talking at this age. And then I looked at the information, like age, and I said, if you think about the fact that my son started, he said his first words around about age 9, and even till date, it's not fully verbal. It's still classed as non-verbal. So it would not really it cannot string sentences together. Comprehension, 0. So in the sense that it's an ongoing, you just continue. Speech and language is for life, So when so I can relate to that. I mean, it's a spectrum. I'm not saying that my son has the same condition as this woman. But what I'm trying to say is I can relate.
You can relate because you're walking the journey, like you say. Yeah.
And I'm able to encourage her to say, hang in there. Delay is not denial. You know what I mean?
I'm so glad that you have brought this up and we talk about adversity. And if I reflect back, and especially after reading your book and also knowing your story, and that is why, if there is one person that I want to use to describe the word resilience, it is you. You are the person that you epitomize that word resilience. And like you say, adversity is not meant to break us. Adversity will come in our lives in every shape, in every form, but they are not usually meant to break us. The way we respond to these adversities is what matters. Adversities will always be there. And I can, what you said about doing everything right, it resonates deeply with me. It's not because, you have the children early or you have the children late. adversity will come and there is no rule book about it. There is no timetable about it. It will happen when life will happen to anyone at any time, but being able to walk through that adversity and not let it break you is so important. And I'm really glad that you started with that. So if you're watching this podcast today, if there's anything you want to understand about BC Osundeko today, it's about not letting adversity define you, not letting adversity break you. Adversity is not there to define. It can be a channel of growth, even for in whatever circumstances we find ourselves. So I like to take you to my next question. Let's talk about daily life. You started talking about your children. So what does a typical day look like for you and your child with special needs, from your morning routines to bedtime? Because I had to come in there because I see you already started talking about your son.
Yeah, I mean, the lovely thing about these discussion is it feels as though I'm only just having a discussion with a friend. The good thing is you're a friend. So I think it's good for viewers to know that this is not scripted. It's not scripted.
It's not.
So we're just having a heart-to-heart. So we're basically talking from the heart.
Exactly.
And so my day-to-day experience sometimes is not the same, even though routines are very, very important. It's important to have a routine. In fact, my son thrives on routine. If you move things around, he knows. He's very sensitive. He knows. He knows. You have to do everything the same way. He's 16 and a half and he still follows a routine. And that's why if there's going to be any changes to our day, if we're going on holiday or any changes, we have to prepare him in advance. You know what I mean? We have to prepare him in advance. Because if you don't, you can just see the level of dysregulation that will happen simply because I'm used to having these and this has changed. As a mom of a teenager who is autistic, I'm used to offering him the same breakfast, not because I cannot. I mean, I remember a time when my dad was like, "Oh, why don't you just try something else for him?" I was like, "You don't know him. You don't know him. You try that. Try to upset his whole routine. It does not. It has to be Weetabix. Weetabix." And obviously, as in anybody who has family members who don't fully get it, and like maybe you're just pampering him, him or whatever. And so I said, you know what? Let's just experiment. I'll offer him something else. Offer him toast and an omelette. And let's see. The screaming and the dysregulation was like, oh my goodness. I was like, wow. You know him so well. My son has a set routine, which even includes the same things. And so sometimes when you change over, to sort of like swap some things around in his meals, you have to work on it. Daily practice. On some days, it feels as though, oh my goodness, this is not going to happen. You try again. I can tell you, I believe that, most special needs parents are resilient because the experiences you will go through, on some days you feel like, no, I've just completely failed. This is not working. But you pick yourself back up again and look at that human that depends on you. That vulnerable human depends on you for everything. You know what I mean? Sometimes not verbalize what he wants. You know what I mean?
Yes.
And I can tell that this is what he wants. So when you have that sort of responsibility, please tell me, how can you not be resilient? So this wasn't a choice. And I'm sure as with you as well, we didn't actually wake up, and say, okay, life, I'm a very strong woman. I'm a very strong mom. I want you to bring me all the challenges.
I know.
I want you to bring me all the diagnosis. No, all of us started.
It's unscripted. Nobody prepares for it.
You're wanting to be in a happy, healthy family. None of us None of us. And so that's why people talk about this Welcome to Holland poem, which is controversial. Some people don't like the poem, where you set out on the journey. And this is where you actually wanted to go to. You're in the plane and you meet yourself in a completely different place.
Different destination.
You then have to learn the ways of your new destination. That's the way it is.
Yeah, I can completely relate to that also. Like my son, both parents was like, how can someone be eating the same thing every day? Like, we'll do all the tricks to try and change the meal, and he's not having it. He's not having it. And what do? You just have to, succumb and give them what they need. For me, the consolation becomes like, at least he's eating. Because some other child will not even eat, and then that becomes another worry.
Exactly.
So if he's set on eating the same thing every day, then go, have it.
And you know that this is some of the ways in which parents of children with special needs have to be the biggest advocates, the biggest cheerleader for their children. Exactly. You might have dietitians, experts who will say to you that what your child is having, maybe it's not balanced or whatever. You know your child best. You have to speak up. And this is how I found my voice. I didn't find my voice overnight. It's sitting in meeting rooms where my child is being discussed, and me not wanting my child to be a number and saying, this child you're talking about, this is my life. This child, I see him 24/7. I see his reaction.
I know him.
I know him. You understand what I mean? So you become the expert in your child. Don't allow somebody who has read something in a book, something that is maybe theoretical, no matter how many degrees they have, full respect to degree holders. We're also degree holders as well.
I know.
What I'm saying is, full respect for our professionals and our doctors and all. But as a parent, you are the expert.
Yes.
In fact, you are the driver's seat, in the sense that you should be able to say to them, my child, this is what my child likes, this is what my child will eat, this is what you will be able to say to them, this is what feels normal for my child, and say that I think this is not right. As a result of that, when it comes to speaking up for a child who cannot speak up for themselves, you'll be able to say something isn't right. And that's so important when it comes to diagnosis and all that. You'll be able to say, this doesn't feel normal. This is how my child is at certain times, certain days, and certain times. This is how my child reacts to this. I don't think my child is happy. I think my child is reacting to this medication. I think we should tweak this. I think my child is not sleeping well. You will become the expert. You have
that responsibility.
So you cannot be afraid. So don't be afraid to use your power as somebody who has invested that time and energy into caring for that child.
For your child, And I remember, saying that in one of the previous episode I did, that your child needs your voice. Especially when you have a child that is non-verbal, your child needs your voice. You cannot afford to be quiet when you need to speak up for your child. And talking about routines, and how routines have helped your child to navigate the world. I wanted to, this routine something you learned through experience, or how did you come into, being able to get into a routine with your child?
So every day, every single day, when you wake up and you start your day caring for your child and all that, you will begin to find that your child will also be your teacher as well. You try this, it's not worked, it's out of the routine. When you try that, yes, this is something. You try to replicate what a good day looks like. You know what I mean? To be honest, sometimes plans don't work according to, as you know, and as my son who is autistic, sometimes, things will not go according to plan. But as much as possible, we try to keep things pretty predictable, is the word, so that he can predict that this is actually going to come next, that's going to come next. So it's by trial and error.
Yes.
I don't think any parents can say, especially, and this is going out to maybe parents that are at the beginning of their journeys. You cannot expect on day one you will be suddenly the master of the routines. Keep doing it again and again, and you will start understanding, because you will find that at the beginning of the journey, there is no manual to say, okay, and let me tell you, I tried to search for those manuals. Recently I was looking at some of the books that I have, and I said, oh my goodness, I possibly, I need to give out some of these books, because obviously since my late daughter passed away, I still have some books that I bought. I bought books on how to help a gross motor skill, a fine motor skills, speech and language, but all these books, and so you will find that, yes, lots of books have been written, but for me, you learn by doing. It's by doing. You're spending time with your child every day. Your child as well will be a teacher in a way as well.
And I think that is the key point there. Your child becomes your teacher. They teach you every day. And it's left for you as a parent to pay attention, to listen to them, to be flexible and to be adaptable, because that is the only way you can learn, even from them. If you're not flexible, if you're not paying attention, if you're not noticing the little things, you will not learn, and that experience is so vital, because like you said, there is no book, there is no script, and every parent's journey is so unique. And that is why I'm really passionate about us, telling our stories and letting the world hear our voices, because every one of our experiences are very unique. I want to ask you juggle motherhood alongside leadership roles. How do you balance, structure for your child with the unpredictability? I know it's been so difficult even getting you to sit here. How do you balance the structure for your child with the unpredictability of public life and entrepreneurship? How do you do it?
Thank you so much. I get asked that, and I'll probably say, in all honesty, I sometimes ask myself, how do you do this? It is important. I think it is important to understand your why, first of all. I think that just keeps me going. For example, as I am sat here, I can receive a phone call from school saying, oh, your son is unsettled. We don't think he can manage or whatever in school or whatever, There's so many uncertainties. In fact, the latest uncertainty, epilepsy, when that entered the mix, I was like, what? We have had enough, please.
Exactly.
You have dealt with enough. 1 minute, your child can be there, and my son is, very playful. He can be there, and the next minute, he's on the floor. And you're thinking, how uncertain. So for me, that is one of the greatest uncertainties, knowing that life can change within a split second. It makes you feel very vulnerable. It makes you feel really, really vulnerable. I go into meetings. I go into very, very important meetings, community meetings, our committee meetings at the council. And I say to my colleagues sometimes that my phone is going to be next to me. We should switch it off. It's a protocol to switch it off, but I'm not going to switch it off. Not trying to break the rules of public office. My phone is going to be on vibrate, because I can be phoned at any time. If my son has a seizure, I want to be there. I want to be there. So as a result of that, you will find that life becomes, you just have to be hopeful. You know what I mean? Life becomes, that you kind of have, it's almost like a philosophical approach to life, where you sort of like realize that being optimistic or being hopeful, hope is really important. Being hopeful or having faith is so important.
It's so important.
It's so important. For example, I wake up every day not knowing whether we are going to end up in hospital. And it's important to say that, because, if my son has it's called a chronic episode, it's very, very life-threatening. If it's more than 5 minutes or whatever, we can end up in hospital in split seconds. But I wake up feeling very hopeful. Feeling so
every day.
That faith that we talk about, that hope, it's like a verb. in my life, because you need it.
It has to be very active.
There is no choice. There is no choice, because if you want to think about the weight of what you're carrying, it will weigh you down. Honestly,
exactly.
It will weigh you down.
Yeah.
I think it's like sometimes when we go to outpatients and I look at the file and I was like, really? Is that the file of my child? The biggest medical file there? Seriously? Oh my goodness.
Exactly.
Oh my goodness. So yes, I'm just trying to say that there is no magic wand. I'm not going to sit here and say, oh, I've got everything figured out. I take every single day as it comes. On some days, and it's happened in the past, I have to take time off because caring for my son,
it becomes priority. Yeah.
Exactly. And for my late daughter as well, who had very, very, major breathing problems, issues with her blood vessels and her brain. So at that moment, that heart to being a special needs mom takes precedence.
Yeah.
If you're well, or if you sense that they've not slept well, something isn't right. So every day is not the same. Even on some days when you think, oh, your child slept very well, everything goes according to plan, they might just have a meltdown. They might have a meltdown and you don't think going out will be. So the thing is, as you go on, you start to also try new things and say, oh, if we try this, like I find when the husband goes to bed early, it gives the nervous system a chance to rest. There's more to have a better tomorrow, the next day, if he sleeps very well. Sleep is so important. I find that as soon as I started to cut off processed food, mood started to improve. I don't have to take time. I don't have to take time off work as much as I used to do. Thankfully, I don't work while they're in school. You understand what I mean?
Yes.
And that's the reason why I actually opted for entrepreneurship. I've always been self-employed. I did have a brief stint with working in 9 to 5, but that was before I had children. As soon as I looked at all the list of professionals that we're going to meet, I saw them, the speech and language therapy, the occupational therapist, the physio. I said, look,
you just know that
employer is going to want
to accommodate this,
all the time. And as we've been a councillor and now the deputy mayor, the wonderful thing is my lived experience has been so beneficial. Because I'm in a position where residents come to me for support, for advice. I'm an advocate for people. What it means is that I can relate to people's challenges and struggles. I'm going to come to that. I don't want us to go ahead yet. I can see, from what you have said, what I've heard is life can be unpredictable. And the key point that, came out there is, having faith and hope daily, because you can never know what will happen. You never know what's around the corner.
If you are not going to let yourself down, or you're not going to put life on hold just because you don't know what will happen. So as unpredictable as life can be, you need faith and hope to keep going on, and pushing through every day. And that is so key, so important. I want to talk about meltdowns because you mentioned it, in this your last statement. Meltdowns are a reality that many families experience, especially if you have a child, like you say, with autism or ADHD. But it's rarely discussed openly. How do meltdowns show up in your home? And how have you learned to respond with compassion rather than fear or frustration?
Fantastic question. You're such a brilliant interviewer. I mean, I'm so in awe of these very relevant questions that you are asking. The thing about meltdown, and it's a bit of an emotive subject for me because, from our background, or we're originally from, parents are responsible for their children's conduct. So meaning that if you see a child acting up, people will point.
You'll be thinking about the parents.
Yes, these parents have not they have not trained.
They have not raised their children, yeah.
Exactly, really well. So, my son is 16 and a half now. So, in fact, he's even more than 16 and a half. He'll be 17 April.
He'll be 17
and my
soon,
little daughter was about 15-ish when she passed away. So, as you can imagine, we've had quite a good lived experience of meltdowns. And one thing I find with meltdowns as well is over time you start to learn what your triggers, what the triggers for your son or for your child, like in my case, my son. I found that with my daughter who had Down syndrome during her lifetime, she didn't have as many meltdowns, and it might also be because of her condition and all, being in a wheelchair and all. It plays out differently with my son, where when he's having a meltdown, he's jumping around the house, and you're thinking, okay, is there anything he can trip over? Is this boy gonna, bang his head accidentally on the wall? You start thinking, show me a better multitasker than a special needs mom. You're thinking, not just
I know.
You're thinking of so many things at the same time. my child himself. The child wasn't hurt himself, hurt you, or hurt other people. Not willfully. It's not willful. That child is not doing it deliberately.
It's not doing it deliberately. Yes.
There's so many things going on in the mind of that child. There's so many things. So that's why I don't think we can go through this journey without empathy and kindness. Imagine feeling a range of emotions. You're tired, exhausted, stressed, and you cannot express it. So when my son is stymieing or having a meltdown, for me, it can be him screaming. And now that he's gone through or he's going through puberty, when he screams, you can possibly hear his voice down the street. You know what I mean?
Yes. Really heavy voice. Yeah, he has a man now.
As simple as, let me help you press the toothpaste or whatever. Like, Mom, I can do this myself or whatever. Or let me help you do this. And so sometimes the triggers can be so simple. And so I am learning to step back. It doesn't want me to press. That's why I said your child will be a teacher as well.
Yes.
And I'm not saying that you outsource parenting to your child, but it's because our children with special needs, like for us as parents, as caregivers, we don't have a diagnosis. We might have neurotypical ways of dealing with this. For example, the child is having a screaming, screaming much. You might think it's an issue with discipline and you want to put the child on timeout. That doesn't work for a child with autism. Behavior per se is communication. That child is trying to communicate.
Exactly.
The child is going through something. Imagine if that child is having a migraine. It's not always the case. The child might be hearing some sort of sounds or something. Do you know how they say our children are very sensitive to noise?
Yes.
Our children are very sensitive to noise.
They pick up things. They pick up things that are completely normal for you, and for them it's very sensitive.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Very sensitive. For example, now meltdowns when my son was younger looks different what it looks like now. And I always say this. I hope society will be kinder to our children. That my son looks like a man and very soon is going to be having beards does not mean that his meltdown does not require kindness. It still requires kindness and understanding from society. But because he's no longer that cute little boy that you can easily just pet on the head or just carry and just give a cuddle, does not mean that it does not deserve kindness. The way society will stare and look and even some point fingers at you or your child, you would almost realize that it feels as though we need a bit more tolerance. When our children are having meltdowns, which in my case can be screaming or can be impatient. For some children, it can be elopement. They will try to run away or something. We found out randomly, this is true, just observing my son, that he doesn't like small spaces. Like if he's in a place where he feels claustrophobic, he doesn't, which is why if he's stressed out, if you take him to a park where there's a massive expanse of land, it just helps them to distress. I mean, we know very well that even spending time in nature just helps anybody to distress.
Exactly. It is therapeutic. Yeah.
When you see behaviors repeatedly in certain settings, your child behaves like that, you start to connect the dots that it looks as though my child is trying to tell me something. And if your child is verbal, because not all disabled children are non-verbal. Some disabled children will express themselves. Let me tell you, listen. You have to listen. When they speak, you listen. And your child is not verbal, and they try to show you in their behaviors, in their mannerisms. Listen. Do you know that there was a day that my son, and that's the thing, on some days you look at everything. Oh, maybe he's thirsty. Maybe he's, you just, okay, have some water. Or say, or go and have a rest. You try everything, and your child is not settling. Your child is not settling. I was like, oh my goodness, tried everything. Are you hungry? Nothing. And your child, and that screaming goes on. Sometimes, you just need to take a step back and just allow. Exactly. Because I find that sometimes when that child is having and you all just pounce on that child, there's too much going on. People are saying, calm down. Control it, How can you say calm down? How can you say calm down to a child who is, and I'm probably saying that to a younger version of myself, who at that moment is thinking it's just a behavior that is willful. It's not willful. You know that my son, despite not being able to express himself verbally, he can type. He can type. So I have a note, I have an app on my phone, which I believe every iPhone user has, and he can type. And there was a particular day he typed up something for me. Let me tell you, I was alone at home with him, and I was just in tears. I was moved.
Yes.
So I was like, what do you want? What do you want? Like, I've tried everything. What do you want? And he just typed cuddle. I want cuddle.
He's so amazing when I see him with that his just writing,
I want cuddle. And guess what? When I cuddled him, truly, that was what he wanted. That was what he wanted. So it's that feeling that life must be hard for somebody who cannot express themselves.
As
easily as we can.
They build up a lot of emotions.
And that means
to hold them in. Yeah.
Have you seen a volcanic eruption like that? You understand?
It takes a lot of strength to hold them in. You can't always hold them in.
It takes a lot. I don't know if you saw the video that went viral of a family. I think the family is in the States. I don't know the family personally, obviously, but the video is online where a particular autistic child, clearly that might be like on the end of the spectrum, because that's not something that is done by all children on the autistic spectrum. And this boy was breaking things, and he was trying to hurt the people in his path. I think he was trying to break things, and his mom held a pan, and she was like going after him so that it won't break. I don't know. People are having all sorts of comments about that and things like that, But I think people must understand that whether they're older, younger, our children need empathy. Empathy. The ability to put yourself in the shoes of another person is so important. In fact, discipline. Some people, obviously, in the comment section of that particular video, saying things about how that child is possibly pampered and disciplined.
Because they are ignorant. They don't know.
Ignorance, exactly. And for me, I think my feeling about that particular incident will be that, those families as well should seek experts. I have studied that parents are experts in their children. Your input matters. But also, they are medical professionals as well who will be able to chip in and say, have you tried this? Have you tried that? I will
hold you there. I'll stop you there, because I'm very conscious that you need to leave. So, and I need to be able to end this interview. I don't want us to end in a hurry. So I'll let you stay there. What has come out there for me is, responding with empathy, with compassion, and this journey has actually taught us to be more empathetic. We have learned empathy from just parenting these children with special needs. Our empathy has been so reinforced, on this journey. And I really want to thank you for that. Now, you mentioned, for your son, that epilepsy was a recent thing. So it adds another layer of uncertainty to his journey. You talked about, you could be, in a meeting and then you get that call from his school, in anything, that living that life of unpredictability. How did you process that diagnosis emotionally, and how has it changed the way you parent day to day?
Thank you for the question. Very, very difficult. I'm not going to sit here and make it seem as though it's been easy. In all honesty, I think epilepsy has been one of the most challenging of all the diagnoses. And this is, as a parent, who has looked after a child who has had cancer, who has had a tracheostomy, who has had a gastrostomy, that they had to feed my daughter through her tummy, and she had to breathe through her neck. So you would expect epilepsy. So, but actually, it's the uncertainty of the seizures, the uncertainty, and because we're still less than a year into our journey, my son is not like those who have their epilepsy, their diagnosis as a baby. This has just happened about 6-7 months ago. So as a result of that, we might not have fully understood the triggers. And it's a condition where doctors are saying that there is no cause. How is it possible that there is no cause and it's randomly happened? Hang on, how did we get selected for this? After everything that we already I had to overcome, we're even dealing with. I mean, it's not like autism. It struggles day to day with his emotions as an autistic teenager. And I'm thinking, how did epilepsy come into the mix? And doctors insist that it's idiopathic, that in some cases they can never understand. However, as a parent who is very, very observant, I think this must have been triggered by a fall. So my son fell in the bathroom. And this is this is actually one of those things that you realize as a special needs parent, that no matter how you try to wrap your child in cotton wool, some things will happen.
Things will happen.
For example, my son bathroom, he wants to move around the house the way he wants to.
He wants to be free. He wants to be independent.
And say, I want to use the bathroom. And so we just found him one day and saw that he had a fall. He fell, And even though doctors are not attributing his epilepsy to that, but I actually think falling down and hitting your head on anything is one of the worst things that can happen to
like you say, it could be anything, because on a previous interview with another parent that the child has epilepsy, there was no cause
as well.
Has started at 7 and that was it. Like, you cannot say exactly what triggered that. It's just unexpected, so it's difficult, really. And I understand, how, like you say, on top of everything else, bringing that on again, it can be really challenging. And I learned a lot from epilepsy, and, it's a different journey altogether. But I want to move on. Parents of children with special needs, they often carry an invisible grief. And I talked about this, even in my book, where I talked about mourning the perceived loss of your child. Even though the child is still there, but you grieve over the child that you were expected to have. So we carry this grief, we carry exhaustion, and we carry guilt. What have been for you some of your hardest emotional moments, and what helped you survive them?
Thank you for the question. I think some of my hardest emotional journey for me really will be losing my daughter. Losing my daughter has been the hardest, experience so far. Hardest, and you never get over the loss of a child that you love. A child, you never get over it. You never get over it. It's really, really difficult. And I think obviously as time goes on, you kind of manage, but it does not mean that you overcome, does not mean that you get over it. So I've come to live with my grief, and I've come to understand that it's something that I have to, live with. You sort of grow around it in a way, I think. And there was this recent proposal that parents of children with special needs should be offered more support. And I'm talking about parents, in the UK.
In the UK, I saw that. I signed that petition too.
So important, and I think this should extend to even parents worldwide, anywhere. We should be offered more support, because imagine when you are caring for a child, the expectation is that the child is 17, 18, the child, lives on things, but you are caring for a child. In some cases, when the child is severely disabled, knowing full well that you're going to be in it forever. That child might never leave home in some cases. Exactly. And it's also the trauma. People don't talk about the trauma, The trauma, as somebody who is trauma-informed from my adoption training, I know that something that people don't talk about a lot. You spoke about how people grieve the picture. You already have a picture of a child that you're hoping for, and then suddenly, it's like me. Even from the beginning, I would look at how my daughter could not breathe, and she had to breathe through her mouth. She had to breathe with the aid of machines. At some point, had to have a hole put in her neck to breathe. It didn't match the picture that I expected, And one thing I notice is, because the focus can be around the child, the care, it's not always deliberate. The parents get forgotten. Nobody talks about.
Exactly. Nobody talks about how all of that impacts you as a parent.
Exactly. Nobody talks about the well-being of the parents. And so some of the greatest things you can ask a parent of a child with special needs is not just how are you, but how are you really doing? So important, not just the vague, how are you doing? And they'll just go for the usual, I'm fine.
And if I can just go straight in there, because you experience the unimaginable loss of a child. If you're comfortable sharing, how did that loss reshape you as a mother or as a person? How did that loss reshape you? Because I can imagine, we're all with you. And even for me, even though, that was not my child personally, but because I was also raising a child with special, I was also raising a child. I knew how I felt just being there. How did that reshape you, if you're comfortable sharing?
Thank you. And I can see your emotions. I appreciate the empathy and your kindness. Honestly, on some days, I'll just be honest. Okay? I'll just be honest. On some days, it's a struggle. On some days, it's a struggle. When you look after a child, that your whole identity has been wrapped around that child. Yeah. And I think you were one of and I know that you didn't expect me to say that, Grace, but I have to thank you for the support you offered me, and I am grateful that I have someone like you in my life, because around that time, immediately after my daughter passed, and even up till now, on some days you ask yourself, what exactly is my identity now that my caregiving, this child that I am caring for 24/7, I wash her, I bath her, I feed her, do everything for her, suddenly gone. There's a void that can never be replaced. That void, no honesty. This is probably the first time I'm trying to find words to explain how I feel, but it's hard. It is hard, especially when it's a child that your whole identity is wrapped around. I honestly, in some aspects of my life, my husband and I would talk about it. My husband would say that since Joy passed away, it's not been the same. Yeah. In some cases, there are some things that I go through, and my husband would be like, since Joy passed away, it's just not been the same. There are some things that I was deeply passionate about. I mean, I was joking with you when we came on this stream. I said, "Oh, it's been ages. I did live stream." And honestly, I should need tissues right now. I'm feeling emotional because there are some things that I'm just deeply, deeply passionate about that I have not returned to. So it's going to be a journey. It's not going to be overnight, And that's why I think for me, the advice would be when parents are caring for a child, it's good to have your own identity as well, because it's my own lesson. I love the fact that I was into it 100%, but I didn't know what to do with myself when Joy died. I didn't know what to do with myself. I was so, wrapped up in her care, in everything. I didn't think I could exist without my daughter.
I'm so glad that it reshapes you, and I'm so glad that you mentioned that, because in one of my episodes, I did an episode where I talked about reclaiming your identity, and it's so vital that even as much as we are wrapped around caring for our child, that we define our identity. And losing a child will definitely reshape you. It will reshape you, like you said, you had that period of, okay, what do I now do with myself? But I'm really pleased, for you, because even in the midst of all of that, you didn't really allow that to define you completely. You still had an identity outside of caring for Joy. You still had an identity, and and that was why even at moments where it will look like I want to stop, I'm like, you see, don't stop. Don't stop, because we really, it's because that you need something to keep you going. If not, you will just be in a place of void, and it's like the end of the world. And it shouldn't really be like that, because I also mentioned in one of my episodes that our children wants to see us happy. Our children wants to see us live fulfilled life. They don't want to think that they are holding us back.
Yes.
They really want to see us happy, and I'm pleased that you have not allowed that loss to stop you. You have kept going, and I'm really so proud of that. So thank you. And going, so after that loss, you chose to adopt. What did adoption mean for your healing journey, and how did love find its way back into your life?
Thank you very much for the question. I think what's important is understanding trauma. Understanding trauma. And I think when for anybody who has gone through an adoption journey, you will find that the process of becoming approved as an adopter takes you, people say it's tough, but then as a special needs parent, you expect that you're already tough. What I find is the training. The training opens your eyes to trauma. Trauma is it's a major subject in the
trauma is real. It's real.
Where children were on the outside, they're not disabled. You might not see them as physically disabled, but emotionally, there is trauma there beneath every adoption journey. Our trauma, that child's trauma, the trauma of their parents. So as a result of that, the adoption journey, the adoption training, the experience really opened, and it was also a validation as well. I sat in front of panelists when it was, you go through all the trainings and then you go through these interviews, and some of the panels that Miles and I had to attend, and they were just praising us. They were just praising us and saying, "Wow, you're such an amazing, Do you know how I said about special needs parenting? Well, on some days you doubt yourself and all. Even as a special needs parent, your inability to birth a child that is healthy alone in itself can make you feel adequate. But to sit in front of a huge panel where they've read a lot about, they've observed you, everything, and they praise you, and they say that they believe that you have something to offer to another child. There is nothing validating than that. But I think our journey is quite a unique one, because we attempted to adopt before my daughter passed away. Before my daughter passed away, we were already planning to adopt. But that's the thing about life. You start something and you never know what's around the corner. I didn't realize that before the end of our adoption journey, that my daughter was going to pass away. And so my new daughter has never met my late daughter. It's a journey that sometimes you do wish that you can see the future. But unfortunately, I don't have the ability to,
and I think I'm pleased to hear that the panel saw the love in your heart. You have so much love. You and your husband have so much love to give, and I'm pleased that they could see that in you. And I'm I don't even know how to say, but love has always been there. I don't think you ever lost that love. The love has always been there, and I'm sure that your new baby, she's just so blessed to have you, because the love will always remain. The love will always be there. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah. So you are the author of 3 books. What moved you to put your experiences into words? And I know you mentioned a little bit about this in the beginning. How did writing help you process your journey in ways advocacy alone could not?
Thank you. That's a really fantastic question. At the beginning of my writing journey, I didn't think it was going to be put into a book. I actually used social media as a tool to express myself. And that's why it's important as well that parents of children with special needs should find their voice. It doesn't have to be social media for all parents, but for me, I would just write. I mean, I didn't see myself as a Chimamanda Adichie. I'm not trained to be literary in any sense, or a writer or anything. But I needed to express myself. Imagine what we said about a volcanic eruption, where you have so many pent-up emotions and you don't have an outlet to express it. Going through some of the experiences that we go through, like near-death experiences, that my daughter had lots of near-death experiences before she finally passed away. And some of the, it's mainly adversity really that led me into writing. So I started sharing just online. Just sharing. I would just write about special needs parenting, because I felt that the world needed to know a lot more about our children. You know what I mean? In terms of, out and about. It just feels as though it's you against the world. And it shouldn't be like that. It shouldn't be like that. I'm much more accepting of stares, and even if people mock you or anything. But in those days, I felt as though I needed to explain and say, this is that is that, things like that. And I was just writing. So there was a particular group of women who read something that I put on Facebook, and they were so friendly. And and a lot of them messaged me and said, you need to put this into a book. I said, what? Do you know how sleep deprived I am? My hands are so What book? It's very important, as parents, to see yourself as being worthy. But in that, at that particular time, my whole identity was being this sleep deprived mom, and I didn't think I was worthy of being considered as someone whose story people would be interested in reading. And the fact that the reactions to that story was like in their thousands. I mean, this was within a group, so it wasn't public. Like 3-point-something K comments or so. Like, it was a lot. And these moms were saying, look, the things that I learned from you, and these are that, and that really just encouraged me. So as a result of that, I started to write a bit more. So in actual fact, when I eventually published my book, some of the things that I wrote are the things that I've shared already on Facebook. There is a lot of things that I shared that I've never written on Facebook, but it sort of helped form a foundation to my writing, where it was very, very therapeutic. And I found over time that writing is so therapeutic for me. Even when I lost a baby, and a nurse who was supposed to be some sort of counselor came around, and she was like, I sat in the midst of 2 other ladies who came to visit, and she was like, who exactly just lost a baby there? And I just opened my laptop and showed her something I had written, just a few hours ago, to offload my emotions. Like, oh my goodness. She's like, you're the only person I have met who's just had a stillbirth. This was more than a miscarriage. I was 5 months pregnant.
Yeah.
Just a baby, and is able to express herself in writing. Because at that moment, we're all watching a movie. We all looked the same, as though I haven't experienced it all. But in that moment when I was writing, I was able to just express myself. There was a letter. There was a letter to my unborn child, to my child who I lost. And I wrote that. And I didn't want to start repeating it verbally, so I gave it to the and she was just like, wow. Now she said on this journey she's met different people who's just had miscarriages, and how some of them don't want to get out of bed, like literally just 2-3 days after. And she said, for me, I'm up simply because I've been able to pour my heart into this. And so writing is very
writing, journaling is really so therapeutic.
I would encourage anyone to consider. You don't have to be an author. You don't have to eventually publish a story, but just journal, just write.
Just journal.
Your mind,
Exactly.
Writing is really good.
It is. And I found the same relief when I was able to also document my story in my book, Raising a Glass Baby. I felt, until then, I didn't realize how much I was holding in, but immediately I was able to bring it out. It was then I realized that, oh my God, I couldn't believe that, I've been holding this in for so long, because it was so difficult to even begin that process for me.
Yeah.
So thank you for sharing that.
As a counselor, your book. Sorry to cut you short. Can I just say that your book is one of the best books I have read, and I have read a lot of books written by specialists. It's such a privilege to know you. Such a privilege to know you. Well done. So proud of you.
Thank you. I'm grateful too, because you are part of the process, for that book, and I thank you for all of your testimonials. Thank you. So I wanted to ask, as a councillor, a deputy mayor, an advocate, how has your lived experience as a mother influenced the policies you fight for and the voice you bring into leadership spaces?
Thank you. Very, very important, because as we know, there is a lot of people out there. There is a lot of trauma. People are going through a lot, and the fact that right now, as a leader, I'm able to support residents. I'm able to sit in very important meetings at the table where decisions are being made. I'm not going to be talking about people as numbers. I am one of those where, but I'm going into meetings prepared. I'm going into meetings knowing full well that some of the decisions that we make, they will shape the future of families, the future of some of our most vulnerable residents. And so that's why I am really grateful for my experience. And it's an ongoing experience, as you know, because I can relate, I can support, I know how to better support my residents as a politician. And so I don't consider myself to be like many other politicians, because suffering has a way of molding you. So I haven't been through a lot, haven't been through a lot. And even with the uncertainties that we face with my son's epilepsy, there is a level of empathy that I feel towards other people. The empathy sometimes as well can be a disadvantage, because sometimes, I will go into meetings and I have to just remind myself, I sometimes am moved to tears. I am moved to tears sometimes. When you read the experiences of some of our families, what people are going through, you just want to save the world, and that feeling as though I want to use my life experience to better the lives of other people. I don't want people to go through, and that's why people can pick up any of our books, my book, your book, and look at what we have done and say, look, I can replicate these things. And also look at the fact that if they've made mistakes, I don't want to repeat that mistake. And also, I also want to see that families with children with special needs get better support. Better emotional support, better psychological support, so important. I don't want people to suffer what I suffered when I was a younger mom. The isolation there is, and that's why mental health is one of the key issues right now. I believe
exactly
one of the major agendas that we should be tackling as politicians is also important. And so when I am speaking in these meetings and I'm advocating for families, I'm talking as somebody who truly understands the journey, because I am living it. I am living it. I see my son's struggles every day. I see his struggles. You know, I am seeing the world through the eyes of my son. So as a result of that, I believe I have a unique responsibility. I am better positioned to be able to speak up, use my voice to better the lives of other people. Thank you.
Yeah, and that is so important. You know, there's no one better place to be able to support and speak for other parents, you know, like you. And I really wish that the wider society will see these struggles, will really listen and pay attention to the struggles that families face, you know, especially when they are raising a child with special need. For parents, you know, and this will be the last question for this episode. For parents that are listening who feel overwhelmed, unseen, or close to burnout, or for those who want to support families like yours, what do you want them to hear today? What is one meaningful step they can take?
Thank you. That's a really, really good question. So for families who would also want to support other families, I would also want to be an advocate, is to believe in yourself. Believe in yourself. Believe that you have something to offer. It's so important. You know, some of the experiences that I've had, it's easy for me to assume or to have the feeling that I have nothing to give. You know what I mean? You know, I remember an experience where I walked into a particular church saying, at that time, I was still very young in my advocacy journey. I wasn't even a counselor at the time, but I was into lots of community, like right now, run special needs group. But at that time, it was a small coffee morning. As I walked into the church saying, you know, I would like to be able to help. I would like to be able to help the community. And guess what? I had 2 kids, the double prom, and it looked like I was the one who needed help. And the victor was shocked. It was like, people walking here every day asking us for help. He said, I've never met somebody who walks in and saying they want to do something for us. And I said, I can build websites, I can that, I can volunteer. I was just trying to use isolation. So my journey might not exactly be a journey. What I'm trying to say is, believe that you have something to offer. My mantra is, a broken crayon can still color. Life might have bashed you here and there and you're bruised. Don't let your lived experience make you believe that you are beyond redemption or that you have nothing to offer. You still have something to offer. In fact, your lived experience is a plus. It's a plus.
It is a plus.
You can use your experience.
I like that, and I'm going to highlight it. A broken crayon can still color.
Yes.
You have something to give. You have something to contribute.
Yes.
No matter what you have been through, you still have something to contribute. Don't look down on yourself.
Absolutely.
Don't discount yourself. Don't discount your lived experience. You have something to give. Thank you so much for sharing that. We've mentioned your books, and I know that you've mentioned some of them, and I'm going to also flash them when I'm doing this. But when readers reach out to you after reading your books, what do they most often tell you resonated with them? You know, why do you think those stories matter? They matter right now.
I think they really, really matter right now because the world is in need of hope. The world is in need of hope. I would say desperately in need of hope. You know, clearly our time is fast spent. I can't go into details, but I'm sure that you would understand that right now, you know, there's a lot of despair out there. There's a lot of despair. People are feeling hopeless. We need more advocates. We need more people to speak up. It's really, really important. And I want to believe that you all have something to contribute. You all have something to offer, because the world is in need of hope right now. You just look out there and there's this story, that story, this negative, this stuff happening.
A lot is happening,
As people are more disjointed in terms of there is no village, there is no support out there. You understand what I mean? So we need more hope. We need more hope. And I think this is why I titled my book Incubating Hope, because hope is so important. We need more hope, hope givers, so to speak. The world is in need of more hope.
It's true. Yeah, so you just mentioned, can you mention all the titles of your book quickly before I let you go? I'm going to flash them. Yes, just show them. Yes. Befriending adversity. Yes.
Befriending adversity. I've got I Fly. I Fly is stories of overcoming adversity. And I've also got Incubating Hope. And this one is my autobiography, because I wanted to share my experience about being an immigrant, being a businesswoman, a successful businesswoman, which I'm grateful for. A mother to two children with special needs. And this journey, is something that I believe will inspire others. And that's exactly the reason why I wrote these books. Thank you.
Yeah, and I'm so pleased that you wrote this book. And like I said, when we started this podcast, BC is an inspiration. And if you are looking for somebody that epitomizes resilience, this is it. This is BC. And I'm really pleased that you came on this podcast today, and thank you for sharing so openly and so honestly. There's just so many powerful nuggets that has come out of this conversation today. I'm really, really pleased that you are here to really share and encourage other parents. And like I said, our stories needs to be told. People needs to hear. They need to hear from us, and we cannot shy away from talking about these topics, or we cannot remain in hiding and think that we'll spread hope. The only way we can spread hope is making ourselves visible and getting our stories out there, so that hope can be shared. Thank you so much, BC, for joining me today on this podcast and for sharing your story. Honestly, I really appreciate that you are able to join me today. I want to speak to our wider audience. So if you are a parent or a caregiver that's listening, I hope you heard yourself somewhere in this conversation, because all of these stories that we share, all of these experiences, even though they are unique, I believe that we can all resonate with them. We can all find ourselves somewhere in all of this conversation. The exhaustion, the love, the grief, the hope, and the strength that you didn't even realize you had. Because like my guest has said today, BC, nobody prepares for this. There is no script. There is no preparation. There's nobody that's wishing that, I'm a strong mom and I want to be this. No. Life happens to us, and our ability to be able to adapt, to be able to be resilient is what makes the difference. So if you are not living this journey personally, I hope that today has expanded your understanding of what support, empathy, and inclusion truly looks like in everyday life. In the conversation today, we've mentioned being kind and showing empathy, even to our adult children that are disabled. The world needs more kindness. That they are now adults does not exclude them from that same empathy and kindness that we showed them when they were young. So breakthroughs don't always come loudly. Sometimes they arrive, quietly, in a routine that finally works, a meltdown that passes, or a moment of joy that feels hard-earned but deeply meaningful. So please, thank you today for joining and listening, for holding space for stories like this, from our guest today. I'm really grateful. And for those that are listening, thank you for being a part of a community that values honesty over perfection. Until next time, be kind to yourself and to others walking paths you may not see. See you in the next episode.